welfare for animals in Goa, where we rescue all types of animals. Our typical day begins with a nice cup of coffee, sharing it with all the animals that live with me. Usually at 9 o'clock, we start feeding all the cows. And start the wound dressings as well. We have about 20 injured calves every day to treat. So this gentle teenage calf is called Lily. She came in when she was about 4 weeks old. She was on the busy streets of Mapsa looking for food with her mother, and she got run over by a car which fractured her leg. So we're putting a bandage on the wound area, even though it's healed. But Lily will have a lifetime problem of the danger of that wound opening up if she drags it on the floor. So we give it some support and we use a splint. Then by 10:30, 11 o'clock, I head off to the dog shelter and have a meeting with Dr. Upendra to discuss the new cases and how everything is going. It gives me a chance to interact with all the puppies, and they're so cute, some of the older dogs that have been there for a long time. Doctor, this is a stray case,
yes,
unsterilized. Probably got caught in a wire trap?
Yeah, it looked like a wire trap, or maybe very tight, the collars they had put in it, and it was bleeding a lot. So we just check, and there are a lot of maggots, thousands of maggots was there.
Yeah.
And then we had immediate take the action, and we given the anesthesia, we clean the wounds, and we start to stitch up. And now after 2 weeks, you can see a lot of improvement is there.
Better.
And now he's on antibiotics. On the later, we are going to sterilize them.
At WAG, we really emphasize a good nutritional diet for all the animals. And this is simply because, like us, they all have different needs. A lot of them are rescues. A lot of them have been separated from their mums at a very early age. Some of them haven't had, like him, he's probably had 1 day of his mother's milk. So a lot of the animals come in with the deficiencies.
Basically, we're trying to just replicate things that they would find in the wild. Seeds are very common, as well as fresh fruit. So we give them a variety. They like pineapple, watermelon, banana, apples, grapes, perus, chikus, anything with seeds really they really like.
Unfortunately, due to poor garbage management, lots of fresh waste is thrown out. So the cows, the dogs, the cats all multiply. And come May, all the shacks shut down, so these dogs are left to starve. So we set up an awareness program and started the beach feeding, where 3 times or 4 times a week we take huge pots of cooked rice dal and we feed the dogs.
Oh, look at this one. This pack, out of all the packs, I think they're the most abused, and I don't think people are very nice to them on the beach because they are terrified. I mean, we've been feeding them for 3 years and they still aren't, like, you know, cuddly, and you can't really pet them that much, pick them up. Hey, Brownie.
It goes without saying there's a lot of heartache in this job, you know. But I always say from all this suffering that we see, there are our little rewards. And if you are a rescuer, you'll know what I'm talking about. You get tiny little signs, little rewards, and you can learn a lot from animals.
Welcome everyone to another Monday Fix with Thus, a 6-year-old platform for critical thinking in Goa. I'm really excited today to have another series in our Monday series about the animals of Goa. We did a really exciting session a couple of months ago about the street dogs of Goa with Carlet and Norma Alvarez. And today we are going to be discussing the street cows of Goa, or the cows of the streets of Goa. And I'm really excited because we've got Atul Sarin from WAG, and Swati Shilker from Dhyan Foundation. And I've got help with Carlet with me from WVS. And we'll try and sort of, this is a complex issue and it's a complex question, but we're really going to focus ourselves to a limited question right now, or what's happening to the cows in the streets. It's really, many of you sort of may have heard about Atul or Swati, but let me just do a very brief introduction. Swati, who's the Goa head of Dhyan Foundation and runs at least 3 different gaushalas in Goa, or cow shelters, was actually a custom and excise officer. And like many people, her life changed, as she said one time when she went and she volunteered at Dhyan, and she decided that she wanted to full-time work as a rescuer and work with cows. And and now she sort of runs all these shelters. And I'm really excited Swati is here. And Atul Sarin, most people don't know, is actually a lawyer by training. And Atul came to Goa, as Atul always tells us, with the hope of an early retirement. And of course, his life changed completely when Atul realized that there was a higher purpose that was sort of destined for him. And Atul set up a WAG, which another thing that most of us don't know, actually Atul set up WAG in his own house. So as we drive past the Seoul main road, we see all the cows on the left. That's actually Atul's house. So in fact, I think Atul lives in the shelter. And I think it's really exciting. And Carlet is the WVS, the Worldwide Veterinary Service, Goa head of animal welfare, just a complete resource of information. I'm really excited that Carlet is there. All of us who live in Goa, this is something we all experience. It's a problem that gets aggravated in the monsoon. We are out in the night, we're driving our cars, and there are no street lights, and there are tons and tons and tons of cows on the road, often really young calves. And the biggest fear you have is, are you going to be able to navigate this without hitting any cow? And you don't want to obviously do that. But me and there's D. Cooper here and a bunch of us who come and volunteer at WAG, we go, and sometimes when we go and work at WAG, we see the horrors that happen, because many drivers, and I'm not saying that drivers are deliberately driving cars in Goa to attack cows. These are possibly accidents. But so many cows and young calves end up at the shelter, both at Dhyan and at WAG and many other shelters in Goa with severe injuries. Very few actually make it. And this is the real sort of reality of cows on the street. But there's a bigger question to be asked here. Why are all these cows on the street? And I'm really going to, and we sort of slowly make our way through that question and understand and untangle this issue. But I want to bring Swati on first. Swati is, I think, Ishani on the... Hi, Swati.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, Swati. How are you? Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Alok. I can see Carlet.
It's Carlet also wonderful. So, Swati, before I come to Atul, I wanted to ask you, you said, so tell us a little bit about your background. Like, were you always somebody who was working with animals, or something changed in your life and you became an animal rescuer and your life changed?
I was never into animals. Okay. I had never touched a cow in my life until the age of 46. And I have got some connection with Atul Sarin, which he doesn't know. And we used to have cats in our house, but I used to pamper them, but I never took them to the doctor. It was my husband who used to do that. And similarly, there was a calf that had met with an accident near my house. And my husband knew about Atul. I did not. And that's when he called Atul Sarin. Atul Sarin recommended Gaurav Yadav, okay, who is also associated with Dhyan Foundation. So Gaurav Yadav came, and that's the first time I touched that calf and tried to help it and felt the satisfaction of helping an animal. And I found some strange looks in Gaurav's eyes. I said, this guy, 25 years old, and doing all this, I found it all the time into animals. And then there is some spiritual connection over here. That's how I got connected with Dhyan Foundation, who is being guided by Yogi Ashwini. So the basic funda is service and charity. You help the creation by helping these animals, not only just cows, all the animals across the board. And I started their Sanatan Kriya spiritual session called as Sanatan Kriya, and I got connected with the Guru. And that's how we are doing this job of helping the animals very serious. It is not more out of compassion, but it is out of a sense of duty. That's how I am into the Ant Foundation. So whenever I don't get that kind of a feeling, but I feel the need to help the animal. It is something different from being emotionally attached and doing it as a part of your duty.
Wow. Atul, for WAG, did WAG start as a dog shelter or as a cow shelter? Or how did this happen?
As a dog shelter, really, because I moved here 15 years ago from the UK for a sort of semi-quiet life. I'll have a guest house in Goa and sort of started it. And then one monsoon, in those days, 15 years ago, there was very less people in the monsoon. I took a walk on the beach and I just saw so many dogs lying under plastic. You could see their ribs, puppies dying. So I realized there was a problem. So we started the beach feeding, and then from there started the dog shelter. And cows was by accident, really. There was some people will remember a cow called Tara was on the Asagao junction, now called the Sorrow Bar junction. And she was amputated and she used to limp. Used to take her like 30 minutes to cross the road, and the buses used to stop and the conductor used to get out and push her, and then she'd fall into the nala. And so I decided to rescue her, and that's when it all sort of fell in place, because I realized there was no way for her. There was very few goshalas in those days. We need more now, but now there's a little bit more. And bizarrely, somebody said, oh, you must get an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with the owner, otherwise you'll be in a lot of trouble. So I got that and then brought Tara home and gave her a good life. And then people just started bringing all accidents or ringing me up. So it really started from there, so accidentally. And like Swatiji says, I just realized what amazing animals they are. And you don't have to be an animal lover or a vegetarian. It's just good practice, to respect your fellow beings.
So I want to ask both of you, you've been doing this work for a while. Is this something that's been going on for many years, all this issue of cows on the roads of Goa, or is this a new phenomenon? Swati, there's a 2016 article where you were quoted in the Goan, where, and I'm asking you the same question that the journalist asked you in 2016. Is this a new phenomena? Is this, this has been going on for a long time?
If you see people living in Goa will know, about 15 years back, this problem was not there. One never saw cattle sitting on the road or something like that. If you find one cow or something on the road, it was rather very unusual and a matter of amusement for public. But as this mega, that is what I understand, as this mega construction started in Goa, concretization of Goa, that is the time I feel that there was no much grazing land left for the cattle. And people who were having cattle in their houses could not afford to give them extra fodder. Normally what used to happen, the cattle would go grazing and they would come back in the evening. So there was no any expenditure as such, only they had to take care of the animals. But when this started, about the same time, the new generation was not having time or was not interested in taking care of these cows and all that. This phenomena happened simultaneously. I exactly cannot figure out the reason, but these two things happened simultaneously. And that is when now, if you see, the cow sheds which were there earlier have been converted into cubicles. And they are being given on rent for 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees. So that fetches extra income for the families. So it's then what happened? The cattle started living on the roads, and people still they can identify. They say that person's name is Mogre, and that one is people can identify. But about 2-3 generations have been born on the street.
Oh, so you're saying these cows have been on the street for 2-3 generations?
Yes, 2-3 generations. So in fact, the cows that were left, their daughters, again their daughters, like that, there is a population increase on the streets. The place where I stay in Taligaon, there are people who can identify the owners also. But unfortunately, the cattle are on the street. And second aspect is that economically, they don't, I mean, it is not a viable project for them because they hardly give 2-3 liters of milk. As against the Jersey and beef cows, which give a higher risk. Surprisingly, you won't find a Jersey cow on the road. You will not find a buffalo on the road.
You never find a buffalo on the road. You're right.
Rarely you may find a Jersey which is useless. I mean, unproductive. I wouldn't use the word useless. So this is the scenario that one sees in almost every village of Goa.
So for people who could not hear Swati's audio, there was a little, I think the audio was a little unclear, but I think Swati made a very important point just now. And it's something we need to understand, that we see a lot of cows on the road, but we do not see a Jersey cows on the road because a lot of milk production has shifted to Jersey cows. And we never see buffaloes on the road. In fact, Goa has a very large buffalo population. If you actually look at the statistics, the livestock statistics, I think Goa has more buffaloes in the state of Goa than there are cows. But we never see a buffalo on the road. So there is something to be said about this here, and we'll come to that. But Khaled, you grew up in Aldona, and do you echo what Swati is saying? I mean, growing up, is this a new thing for you also?
Yes, most definitely. Earlier on, as a child growing up, going to school, we would see cows, but they were always with a herdsman. So there was someone droving those cows to maybe open pastures that were common spaces, and they would graze in those areas, and the owners would bring those cows back. Somehow that cattle shed thing, there's a lot of work involved in cleaning a cow shed. There's a lot of dung that could be there. There's a lot of urine that you need to have a good flooring and a disposal mechanism to keep it clean. And I feel that people have moved on from rearing cattle to just leaving them to fend for themselves, maybe milking them, because the cows are quite smart. They would go on their own every day out to find food in the open pastures, and they'll come back to where their home is and just stand there, even if there's no shade around it. Now, what we see more often is a lot of cows on the roads at night, which is dangerous. They're black. Sometimes the color is even harder, but I have come home at night from work and I've seen cows on the highway, sitting on the highway. So it's really difficult. They shouldn't be there, in my opinion. And this wasn't the case about 15, 20 years ago. There weren't that many cows to start with. There were more cattle herders. There were more people looking after cows. I think dairies have moved towards being a little larger setups. Goa rather is no longer that place where, when we talk about dairying in India, it's 1 or 2 cows, the marginal farmers, 1 or 2 cows, and they would milk that and supply it to the cooperative. That is becoming more commercialized, where you have 15, 20 cows, and there are schemes for it. So people are going in for, as Swati said, crossbreeds. You don't see a Jersey on the streets, but people do have them here. Buffaloes are very economical because they're suited for our kind of climate. And unfortunately, our desi cows, it's not that they're not productive enough. They're definitely not as productive as a Jersey or any of the imported breeds. But they are hardy animals. They will survive on pretty much anything. Right now, you see them eating garbage, and they're still alive. But sadly, there are a lot of problems they have on the streets as well. So it's a new problem, I think.
Atul, you always said to me that the cows that we see in the streets of Goa are not always all abandoned cows. I mean, it's a very complex situation. Can you take us through that? Do they really belong to someone? Are they really abandoned? Are they lost through generations? What is it?
Yes, I mean, that's a very good question. And also, I'm really glad that you are referring to them as street cattle and not stray cattle, or as the newspapers like to say, the menace of the stray cattle. And a lot of tourists, foreigners, they will also ask me, well, what are they doing on the street? Are they owned? And from my experience, I would say about 50% are owned and 50% are stray. Stray meaning literally they've got nowhere to go. And even the owned ones, unfortunately, as Dr. Khaled said, a lot of them will go back home and there is no shed because many people have sold their sheds for a small fortune. But now the time has come, like we really need to take action. And fortunately, there are a lot of laws in place. But as with many, many laws in India, it's the implementation. So the stray cattle are formed, for example, many people will, dairy farmers will have, when they have a male calf, they don't want to send it to slaughter, so they'll just throw it on the street. Now, these bulls form small herds of abandoned cows, and the other half are dairy farmers. So basically, the farmer will milk the mother and kick her out and see you in the evening, find your own food. And if you get run over or somebody throws some acid on you, then we will totally disown you. Wow. So I say to dairy farmers who do this, I said, would you do that to your child? And of course not. So now is the time that we have to implement and get strict with the dairy farmers who abandon. And there are laws in place now. For example, any stray cattle should be compounded under the Goa Panchayat Raj Act, Section 112. They should be compounded by the Panchayat or municipality, who have to set up cattle pounds. And not one has been set up to date, which is quite shameful. And what happens is, in case they pick up a dairy cow, then people don't know this, then the government can even fine. The Panchayat has the power to fine the owner, not 50 rupees, 2,000 rupees a day as well. So, these are good laws in place, but as I say, they're not happening. And usually what the government says is to the Panchayats, municipalities, if you can't set up these compounds, which you obviously can't, then you have to help the NGOs, the goshalas that are doing this. This also applies to dogs and cats. And another problem is panchayats and municipalities are not enthusiastic. Some of them don't even know it's their duty. And even if they do, they don't care. So now is the time to actually, start laying down the law, so as to speak.
So Atul, what you're really saying is that it's a combination that some of these cows actually belong to people. I mean, as Swati said, the agrarian nature of the village is changing. The village is getting rapidly urbanized. The value of land has changed around us. And, I say this fully acknowledging that I'm part of the problem of gentrification of the village. And what we're really doing is we're displacing spaces, whether they're spaces for grazing, spaces for tabelas, and we're taking over these spaces. In fact, so many times, so many North Goa restaurants, actually people know that those restaurants were actually tabelas. And suddenly, like a really fancy restaurant, everybody's sitting and the person is like, oh, this used to be my cow shed, and now I'm making a lot of money out of it, not realizing that we have really, but these problems have been compounded by multiple spaces like this. But so we have a scheme, call it, right? We have a government scheme. We have the Goa Panchayat Act. We have a duty of the Panchayat to care for these things. The Panchayat has to penalize, Panchayat has to create the compounds. And I'll come to Swati because Swati has a much larger burden of cows in a shelter. But how do we work with this?
Yes, so I have been in quite a few meetings and discussions with our animal husbandry department in Goa and with several panchayats that have showed some interest to deal with the problem. There are quite a few issues that need resolve and a political resolve from the government point of view. For example, it is estimated that in Goa, there are approximately 15,000 cattle on the street.
Wow.
Of those, about 3,000 are in goshalas, like Dhyan Foundation. There's one in Sikerin, in Valpoi as well. Atul has some cows as well. So in the few goshalas that we have, I could count them on one hand. There are about 3,000 cattle in there. And a few years ago, in 2014, the then Chief Minister, Mr. Parikar, came up with a scheme through the Animal Husbandry Department because nothing was being done by the local bodies, who are the municipalities and the panchayats. The Municipalities Act and the Panchayati Raj Act was in place a very long time ago, I think the 60s or 70s, and amended then on. Nothing was done because at that time, it wasn't that big an issue. More recently, the panchayats haven't prioritized or perhaps don't have the technical skill or the will at this point to deal with the cattle problems, even though it is by law their job to do it. So in the interim phase, the scheme of stray cattle management was brought out by the department, and certain funds were meant to be allocated. Now, the issue there is a reservoir budget for which was scheduled for the cattle work, and that sits at approximately about 4.5 crores is what I'm aware of annually. I'm talking about. That 4.5 crores at about 150 rupees per day, which some of the goshalas are getting to feed cattle, and in Goa we're also in another difficult position where we're getting cattle feed from out of state. There isn't much that we're growing in the state either. So according to those calculations, the government needs to spend about 20 crores to feed the 15,000 cattle that we have. This is what I've been shown the calculations of, and it's a lot. They don't have the budget for it.
So I'm being Arnab Goswami now, sorry. But Swati, I really want to ask you now, because, Swati, first give us some, I know this a little bit, but for our audience, how many shelters does Dhyan have right now, and how many are the total number of cows in all the shelters that you care for?
In Goa, you would say. In Goa.
In Goa. And
Foundation has pan-India presence.
Yes, of course, yes. But Goa.
Just for information, we have 30 gaushalas all over India.
Sure.
And we are taking care of about more than 30,000 cattle all over India. The cattle that are smuggled to Bangladesh are caught by Border Security Force. And Dhyan Foundation have taken 20,000 cattle. And we have set up gaushalas in the northeast. We have gaushalas in West Bengal, Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, everywhere. Just a little bit of introduction to the audience. In Goa, we have 3 gaushalas. We started with one single cow in February 2013. And today we have 700 cattle. We have 3 gaushalas. We have one gaushala at Betul. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We have a gaushala at Betul. There we have about 676 cattle. 476 cattle. Then there is another gaushala at Zambavlim. There we have 166 cattle. And there is a cow hospital newly started at Shirvoy, where we have about 62 cattle that are brought. Those cattle are injured cattle. So we are treating them in that gaushala. So we have in all 700 cattle. Every day we receive 2 to 3 cattle in our gaushala for treatment. So
and all of these cows are injured cows? They've come with some sort of injury or illness?
Yeah, majority are injured. There are maybe about 100 to 150 rescued from slaughterhouses.
Okay.
Yeah. So rest all are injured cattle.
And how? So, and do you have any government support? Are you able to avail of any of these panchayat funds?
Yeah. I will make a small correction to what Carlet has said.
Sure.
She says 150 rupees a day. That is in the proposed scheme. Currently, government Animal Husbandry Department has been kind enough to consider our suggestions. But currently, we are getting 75 rupees per cattle, per cow. But
per day.
Per day, 75 rupees per day per cow. But not all the animals. Out of 700, we are not getting these funds for all the animals. But the scheme is 75 rupees a day. Okay, and now little bit of delay is there in getting the funds. We have still not got funds for the financial year 2019-20, whereas we are in the month of November in the year 2020. So we have to spend on our own to take care of these cattle. It's not easy.
How much money do you need per cattle per day?
To feed them properly, you would need between 150 to 200 because they are stray cattle.
Okay.
They are not productive. So 150 to 200 will take care of their food as well as the other requirements of setup and all that. So the scheme has got some scheme has got facility. I mean, it provides facility for shed. Then it also allows a vehicle. It allows the feed for the cattle. Then it gives the driver's salary. It gives the salary for workers. So these and doctor's salary also. But it is not fully implemented. Currently, what we are getting is 75 rupees a day per cow. That is registered with the department. They come and tag you animals. And those many animals only you get the scheme. And doctor's salary, they have recently started. 30,000 rupees doctor's salary. 6,000 rupees for labor. 6,000 rupees a month for one worker. But that too, they have allocated one worker for 50 animals in that proportion.
Wow.
And the driver's salary is not yet been given. Recently they have started giving 10,000 rupees for a driver. And proposed scheme is the Honorable Chief Minister has doubled, and he says we are going to give you 150. But so far the scheme is in the pipeline. We have given our suggestions, and the Animal Husbandry Department has been kind enough to take into consideration all the factors. But now it has to be implemented. Only then we'll be able to tell you how successful.
Swati, is there a pattern you see in the way the cows come to you with injuries? Does the number of cows go up in the monsoon? Does it go up in the tourist season? Is there some sort of pattern you can explain to us that you experience every year?
In monsoons, we get as many as 6 cases. Because what happens?
Cases a day.
6 cases a day.
And what kind of cases are they?
Accident cases only.
Okay.
Because what happens is they find the roads to be warm and they find it clean. So they come and sit in the evening, they come and sit in the middle of the road. And suddenly in the dark when you are driving, you can't, particularly black cattle, you can't see it. And that's when these accidents happen. Monsoon is the time. In summer, in lockdown, we did not have that many cases during lockdown. Now that the traffic has started, it has increased again. But during the lockdown period, there were very few cases, very stray cases of natural injuries, not the accidental cases.
Atul, can you tell us a little bit about the kind of cases you handle at WAG? I mean, for example, a lot of us don't know that we've all heard the term foot and mouth, but a lot of us don't know that a lot of cows in Goa suffer from foot and mouth, and a lot of our work at WAG is treating foot and mouth illness treatments. And can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. And actually, before I left the UK, and maybe it was part of the reason I left, was there was a foot and mouth outbreak, and they slaughtered the 3 million cows in one weekend and just bulldozed them into football pitches and so on. So coming here, I was quite shocked to see that we had rescued cows with foot and mouth. Now, due to incompetence from various departments, it has been allowed to spread. And it is infectious, it is contagious, but it's not fatal. What it does is it decreases the dairy yield. And I was quite surprised that we've actually cured a lot of ours. But the point is, yes, it's there. And if the cow isn't treated, it is fatal, because a small open wound on the hoof will then lead to maggots and will lead to gangrene. And a cow is not like a dog. Most cows cannot survive on 3 legs because of the weight issue. If I can just refer to some earlier points that correctly Dr. Khaled and Swatiji are saying about if you take all the cows of Goa, the street cows, and compound them or in goshalas or panchayat compounds, there's not enough funds. However, the 4 crores, which is a lot of money, which has not been fully distributed, even if that is put there, we can supplement the good running of those compounds, goshalas. Fortunately, due to 5,000 years of rearing cows in India and worshipping them by certain communities, there's a lot of knowledge here. And Swatiji mentioned non-productive. Now that's a very good word because good, I mean, it's an important word because a lot of dairy farmers will send their cows when they're not productive to slaughter, or they'll just kick them out on the street. Now, cows can be productive, and what I recommend is within these compounds, within these goshalas, get the government money, but you can easily afford to look after that many cows. You can use panchgavya, you can make incense sticks out of cow dungs, fertilizer, biogas. Out of 300 cows, you can light up a whole city. But this all requires good practice, not lazy local bodies. The other thing I also support, and I'm sometimes not popular for this, is sterilization of cows, stray cattle that have been picked up. Exceptions can be made if people want, to carry on the Indian breeds. But it should be a general practice, because one calf, if it born in a goshala or a compound, and all its life is going to cost 2 lakhs. Now, where is that money going to come from? So what I would suggest is, again, everything is in place, but we just need everybody to get together and implement these policies.
Atul, how do you mean neutering a male cow, obviously, right?
Well, and female ones. Now, I stress within a goshala, within a compound. So where, for example, we've had one female cow called Goody that we rescued 4 years ago from Arpora. Terrible case. Her mother had eaten a battery and it exploded in her mouth. So she couldn't eat, and she died. And Goody was like, you could see all her ribs. She had no milk. So we rescued her, and she's a big, healthy cow now, but she's had 4 babies. She's very fertile. She's had 4 babies. Now, that's very cute, but unless you want to go into dairy, which is not something I think compounds and goshalas should really get into, because otherwise you're getting into the same out of the frying pan into the fire. But with sterilization practices, you can keep the population down. Somebody even bizarrely said to me, but what if they go extinct? I mean, hello, there are 90 million cows in India, stray cows, and they're suffering every day. So in 100 years' time, when they start to decrease, we will then maybe stop the sterilization. But you can make them productive.
Just to put a bit of context of what you said, I mean, Anthony Rubin is here from Chennai, and Anthony is a great animal activist from Chennai. And Anthony is just echoing what we are saying, and he's saying there's similar issues in Chennai. And I'm sure, and there are many other people, my ex-colleague Sirjana is here from Delhi. I think this is a problem that's universally across the country. For various reasons, this sort of abandoned street cattle on the streets of India is a really big issue. And I think, so either they're being hit by cars, they're getting contagious illnesses like foot and mouth, or as Scarlett, we have seen recently from the case of the Goa case, and this is happening across India, and this is something we should be really ashamed of as a country, that we are feeding plastic to all the cows. I mean, veterinary doctors are now being trained how to remove plastic from the stomachs of cows in India. It's absurd. Am I right, Scarlett?
Yes, that's absolutely right. I, as a student, I know I was up in Gujarat doing my master's, and I could give you a number on that. We did 10 postmortems of cows that were dying out of a goshala every day. I mean, they were so lovingly picking them up and looking after them, but the entire stomach, and the cow has 4 stomachs, the entire thing was impacted with plastic. 9 out of the 10 cows that died had more than 40 kgs of twined plastic with wire and bobbins and, you name it, buttons and whatever goes in our garbage, unsegregated, the cow is trying to eat from that same packet. So the general thing is, We have a little bit of leftover food, you have a little bit of your garbage, and that's usually tied into a plastic bag and put into the bin. The cows get to the bin before the municipality cleans out those bins. We have a lot of open garbage dumping points. They're not even points sometimes, it's just anywhere. And these cows intend to eat the food in that plastic and eat the plastic too. And it's really sad. A lot of them, I'm sure Swati will have experiences of, I remember visiting Dhyan Foundation Goshala a few years ago, and there was a bull there which had plastic coming out through his nose. It was that full. So it's unfair. It's really unfair what we're doing.
What do you do, Swati, when you have situations like this? Do you have people do you have surgeons who can operate on cows? What do you do?
No, my
It's a very tough question.
Yeah, my experience is not really good with the surgery for doing, for removing plastic. We don't survive. I don't know if there are really experts in this field who can really carry out surgeries and do it. But we, in Goa, at least, we did not have a very good result. Let me frankly.
Yeah. I'd just like to add to that, one of the reasons for the inability to save the animal at this stage, when you've got 40 kgs of plastic, which takes up about 80% of the volume inside the rumen, it is that hypovolemia. You're removing that entire chunk. You've got to replace it with something. So unless we come up with something called cud transplant, you have the chew, the cud from another healthy cow, replaced back, or you squeeze the juices out of this plastic stuff and put it back into the rumen, only then will they survive. The cow relies on digestion of food by microbes. And if we are removing that much plastic with that volume, they cannot survive because of that.
There is, I know we are this is not a fun conversation. It was never going to be, but Atul, I think I want to actually ask you to tell the audience how tough this monsoon has been for WAG, and I think I would really, because, this is something that you deal with on a daily basis, and I'll also ask Swati afterwards. There's a sheer number of accident cases you've had where you, despite all your best efforts, the number of animals that we buried at WAG just hit by car accidents, and how grave the situation is. Can you please share a few cases with us?
Yes, absolutely. It's what I say, it's not a disaster waiting to happen. We're in the middle of the disaster. And I get about 10 calls every single day of accidents. Sometimes we cannot help them all. It is horrific. And I think actually it should be made the law that people from the Animal Husbandry Department and local bodies should all visit a Goshala, a cow shelter. We asked one of our Oshel Panchayat to visit in the monsoon, and they said, no, it's raining, we're not coming now. And it's November now, they haven't even been to see. We've had the most saddest cases, and babies dying. It's terrible to bury a baby of any kind, but especially calves, because they're so graceful, they just seem to accept that this is their fate and don't make fuss about it. But it's very, very sad. We've had cases in the monsoon where outside Naftara in Siolim, Naftara restaurant, a speeding truck bashed into 4 huge bulls. It was like something out of a horror film. They were all dead. And there was a calf sleeping on top of one of the dead bulls. So that was also very, very sad. So basically it is a terrible situation. And people even ask me, do cows like to sleep on the road in the rain? And I say it's very simple. The answer to that question, do you? If you had a house, a shed, would you go there or would you sit in the rain? So they are only sitting on the road because they have nowhere to go. And fluorescent collars and things like that are good initiatives, but we need to solve the long-term problem, which is to get them off the streets.
Swati, would you please share some of the Dhyan's experience this monsoon? I mean, this has been the highest rainfall monsoon we've had. We've had the highest rainfall this year in recorded Goa's history. And I'm sure there's been a repercussion of that in the shelter for you also. Just a much higher burden of like injured cases.
Sorry, monsoons are always difficult, you know. And to add to the fire, because of lockdown, the labor went back to the villages because of Corona. So we had a tough time finding workers also. In Goa, for that matter, you don't get locals to do this kind of service. We have workers coming mostly from Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, like that. And because of this Corona thing, they all got scared and they just went back to their villages. And that was a very challenging scenario for us. We have to manage with very few workers. We have to get those who don't have much of experience, you know, in this field. But somehow we managed because we had to. There was no other choice. But monsoon time, saddest cases are the pregnant cow being hit by a vehicle with broken back. You know, you can't even put her on a sling machine because of the very fact that she's pregnant. Broken legs, you know, that is the most difficult. Baby is there inside, you don't know what to do. And it is they eventually don't make it, most of them. Sometimes babies are born premature, but sometimes babies are born but mothers die. So it's a very difficult situation to handle such kind of cases. We had a buffalo here in Donapau, which was pregnant and being hit by a vehicle. She's waited there helpless. These animals don't even groan. They don't make any noise. But you can see the pain. All this, you know, somehow we have to bring an end to this situation. There are small little cows on the road in the middle of a heavy traffic on the highways. Babies are there, mothers are there. They just walk. I mean, we wouldn't allow our children to go like this on the streets. But this is the current scenario. So, solution. If I am jumping the gun, I don't know. Should I say something about the solution, or you're going to ask further?
No, please say something about solution. I think everybody wants to really talk about solution. I was really just trying to paint the picture.
Put over there.
Swati, we can't hear you very clearly, Swati.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Swati, do you want to put your video camera off so the audio quality will improve?
Okay.
Atul?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better, much better.
Okay. No, this situation is that, so solution for this. And now there is a Kamdhenu Ayog, that is Kamdhenu Commission has been started by the central government. Now, the other day we had a meeting with the Chief Minister of Goa along with this Kamdhenu committee team. So they are suggesting to start a CNG plant as well as the hydrogen gas plant. Hydrogen gas is made out of urine of the cows, and CNG is of course out of the cow dung. So this way they feel that the animals which are there on the streets, if people get some kind of remuneration, forget the milk part of it, forget the milk at all. Now we are coming down to cow dung and urine. So if people get some certain remuneration for this cow dung and urine that they collect and they will be supplying, like the cooperative movement for milk, and the whole thing will go at one site and it will be used in production of CNG and hydrogen gas, then possibly something interesting may happen. The people would like to keep a cow or two in their house, in the villages and all that. Those who want housewives who want some money to support their family, maybe this kind of thing can happen. Second thing is we have requested the government to give us land. Dan Foundation has told, you give us land, we will take the care of the streets. And we will put them in a Gaushala. And Gaushala has to be supported by the government to make it self-sustainable later on, so that the animals are taken care of. Or another aspect is that, like community farming or community dairy, that a cow shed is made wherein all the cattle can be kept. They can be taken out for grazing in specified areas, supported by the herdsmen, and brought back in the evening, and people can own those cattle. For example, if a woman has a cow, she can come there, take care of her particular cow, clean her up, get the milk out of her, sell it in a, like how we do it in a cooperative movement. something like that can be worked out. Otherwise, these cattle have got no future. They will die on the roads only. Because interestingly, they like to be on the roads. Even if they are in a jungle, wherein there is a lot of greenery around, they'll come and sit in the middle of the road. That's what I found it the other day I was going from Amona. It was green and beautiful, but they chose to sit in the middle of this road. Because what happens when the vehicles are moving, there's heavy breeze. So the flies and all are kept away. So that is one of the factors. And the roads are warm and clean. They want a warm and clean place. So suppose a cowshed is given to them in the common cowshed, wherein it is kept clean and they will come in the evening. If you train them, they'll come and come to the cowshed in the evening. And another point I had suggested to the government of Goa, that let us not have a cattle farm in every panchayat. Make a cluster of panchayats, because Goa is a small place. There is no land. So make a cluster of panchayats, find a common land, put all the cattle over there. So this is the only solution, because you have to make her economically viable. Otherwise, she is going to be on the road. And her presence on the roads is going to create these accidents and other things. So we have to bring back the glory of Indian cow. Her milk is the best milk. It is called A2 milk, which is better than the milk given by Jersey and buffaloes. So we can make them more productive. That quality of the milk is really good compared to the Jersey cow. In America and other countries also, they are talking more about this A2 milk. In Brazil has already Gir cows, and they are producing milk and exporting to Australia. So all those things are happening. So this is a step. NGOs, government, and the multinationals or companies. I have requested them, let there be a CSR project for taking care of the gaushalas, and let the government be the governing body, because government and compassion cannot go hand in hand. So compassion will come from the gaushalas.
Cows will shelters take care of? I mean, that's a really important question. Like, how many cows, how many cows are we planning? How many cows can we build an infrastructure to take care of?
There are gaushalas all over India. I mean, we have a gaushala wherein there are 7,000 cattle in Chakulia. 7,000 cattle, one gaushala. So we can have about 3,000 to 4,000 cattle in one gaushala. In places, there are still some places in Goa where you can house that. Because every village it is not possible. Every village it is not possible. Let there be a cluster of villages. You can have 1,000 cattle. Or at least those main places, accidents happen on highways of Ponda, highway of Pororing. That is a place where more accidents are happening. Usgaon, Ponda side, we get maximum cases. Maximum cases are there in Mapsa, Pororing, that highway. Or this old Goa, Bambolin. These are the.
I like what you're saying, Swati. I think maybe, Khalid, I'm thinking maybe what we should really talk about is sort of a community ownership of cows, or community duty, idea that we need to have a sense that this, I know Atul is confusing, right? Are these street cattle? Are these abandoned cattle? Is there an owner? And maybe we need to sort of say that there has to be a community duty to protect these cows. And I think the conversation has to be then, okay, fine. So it's a collective responsibility. If it's a collective responsibility, what do we do? Where do if we create? So for example, I want to ask you, Atul, if you have a cow that comes to you with an injury and you treat the cow back to good health, will you be comfortable releasing the cow back on the streets?
No, because for every one accident that we rescue, there is, I think, 9 or 10 that are just lying there. And it's usually, if somebody reports the cow, and very often it's a foreigner or somebody from outside, and we have to ask them to stay with the cow till we get there. Sometimes we even ask them if they could pay for the rickshaw, and they're like, "Well, we were on the way to the beach, but okay, we'll do it because we can't see this." So the answer is no. I mean, it looks very romantic, when they're grazing on the green grass, but we see the horrors. We We just picked up a big bull that had stepped into a metal can that was thrown. Maybe he stepped into it when he was a calf, but now it's just cut into his leg. It's horrific. And I think you also helped rescue one with a similar problem. I think she had stepped into a cut fish tin or something. So now also, you know, it brings to question, did people not see this huge wound full of flies? The bull was walking around for maybe a year with that wound. So unfortunately, no, I wouldn't put them back, and I would compound them. And it is good to try and raise a community spirit, but there must be a law in the background, because we cannot rely on human beings, community spirit, you know. That's why that is there, and it's good when it happens, but there must be laws in place. We have had people, you know, bring in their cow, it's injured, and they're crying, you know, "Ye mera dil ka tukra hai," or "This is my piece of my heart, you know, please treat it," and we never see them again, you know. So it's quite shocking.
I think we're getting a lot of really interesting comments and questions, but I just want to ask one question, and then we can open up for discussion. It's just that, what is your advice, Swati and Atul, to people who want to, somebody who sees an injured cow on the street? Because I know that this is, and I want to just qualify this question by saying that I know this is a problem you guys face all the time, and I've experienced it, is that most of us see a cow on the street, injured cow, and we feel that our duty as citizens is over the minute we call the shelter. As if we call the shelter, we have passed on the burden to the shelter, now I'm going to the beach. Because nothing can come in the way of me going to the beach, right? And I'm feeling virtuous because I've reached out of the shelter. So can you please add a little bit to this? Because the duty goes beyond that, right? You can't just call the shelter and ask the shelter to show up magically. Maybe Swati, what should we do? How can we assist?
I would be very grateful if people call the shelter.
Okay.
Because see, one is not equipped. We started with one single cow in February 2013 because there was nobody else taking care. You know, it is not easy to handle a big cow, you know, which is lying on the road. Facilities are not there. Citizens, they do come and help. And if a person can dial 100 also and call the police will contact one of the NGOs. That is enough. Frankly speaking, I feel that is more than enough anybody can do. But at the same time, it is not Dan Foundation is a thought. It is not a few members. We have volunteers all over the world. Whoever thinks for the creation is a member of Dan Foundation. So we have 200 odd people who have some time or the other called us. Now we have a network of people. So if there is an accident in a particular case, we call those 3-4 guys. They come and they help us. Not all are equipped, but now people are getting more and more aware, and they are getting more conscious of it. Dan Foundation is a name on everybody's, even for that matter, Atul Sarin's name or Dr. Khaled's name. People know, the moment it is a dog thing, it has to be Dr. Khaled. And north side, it is everybody knows Atul Sarin. So right. This is because of the services rendered by them. So this is how awareness among the people. This is a wonderful platform. You have called so many people from all walks of life, and they are conscious about this problem. And it's a wonderful initiative that you have taken. What more can I say? Because they can raise their voice again in the Gram Sabhas. The common citizens can raise their voice in the Gram Sabhas, bring to their notice their responsibilities. Now, I just want to see handling. There's a question, a nice question raised by somebody. Now, it is not easy to catch a cow, injured cow or injured bull. If they start running, it is just impossible. A pregnant cow with baby stuck, you know, a scientific term, Khaled will be able to tell. Dysphosia or whatever, I don't know. Yeah. So what happens is, if the cow starts running, you can't help it. In this scenario, or a bull with an injured horn, he just doesn't let you catch. We have struggled with 20 attempts to catch this animal. So only request is to allow us a dart gun. And if you are a lawyer, can you help us with whether we need to have a license for having a dart gun. If we have a dart gun, it can be used all over and we can catch those animals, help those animals. So I'm not able to get an answer. If one requires a license, then the goshalas should be made, eligible for that particular thing, you know. So only then we'll be able to help these injured animals. But I don't know, your question was what the people should do. I slightly deviated from the main.
Very useful. Thank you, Swati. It was a very nice answer. Thank you so much. I think you gave us a lot of things that we can do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to open up for some questions. I think I'm going to start with the last question, which as shelters we appreciate. It's a question from my friend Bumpy, who's asking, is there any sort of tax break a taxpayer gets if they contribute financially towards an animal shelter?
Yes.
An animal shelter is registered like an NGO, so you get the 80G exemption. It's the same thing. It's the same exemption you get for any kind of charitable contribution. So please donate money, and and you will get a suitable tax break. Thank you for asking this question, all of you. And I think we showed the WAG video in the beginning, and Atul in the video very clearly says that WAG does all the work without any kind of government aid. So please, yes, shelters always, and I'm sure Swati will also welcome any kind of donations. Shelters always need help. And WVS also, sorry. Shelters are always in need of money. Thank you for asking that. Nilankur is saying to share any helpline numbers. Actually, the WAG and the Dhyan Foundation numbers are very publicly available, but I can share them in a little bit. Swati, can you just type the Dhyan helpline number here so we can share it, please? There's a couple of other things that people are saying. Like Mervyn made a really interesting point, and I want to ask you guys. The most important thing, it comes back to this, is that maybe as villagers or as members of this community, we need to reiterate the point that we are taking away the community grazing land, right? We are reducing the community grazing land, and that's why the cows are really out on the road. I mean, that's a really, really key issue, right? Khaled?
Yes, I would like to comment on the food aspect, the food availability that we have in Goa. In the monsoons, it's great. There is less pasture and the cows would have something to eat. But for the rest of the year, when all of those lands are occupied by some event or the other, or the grass is dry and it's barren, the cows don't find much to eat. And that's when they start making it to the nearest garbage tip or the city or, somewhere close by. Like, for example, Mapsa, where we say is one of the places, it's a municipality and it's surrounded by quite a few panchayats. And that place, they probably don't have owned cows there, but they're coming in from the villages because there's no further grazing land. Either we're planting our own rice there, and we don't want the cows in the field, but there isn't a food source. And I think that is something that I would like to touch on with regards to developing ways. And we can grow more food. We can grow certain fodders that will produce, and it can go into something that the government is trying to call a fodder bank. Every time during the lockdown, it was the worst. I knew people who were literally crying because they didn't have food to feed their animals. We had rice, we had dal, but then a cow needs its fodder, and it was very hard to get if the transport wasn't available from Karnataka. Goa needs to start growing grass for the animals that live here. That is one. Maybe the agricultural department, we have an ICAR, the Indian Council of Agricultural Research in Old Goa. They've come up with a grass called Super Napier that can grow very easily with minimum care. And the people who have a little bit of fallow land, perhaps they could allocate it to somebody who's willing to cultivate fodder to give to goshalas. That's a way of donating as well. You're donating grass, food to the cattle. So that is one. And the other way I think the solution would be, as Swati rightly pointed out, is we need to value add. The cow is not a waste. We've got methane from there. We've got the dung that can be made into so many different products. Atul's doing a great job of making gonile, making agarbattis and dupe sticks and so many things. The most recent I saw in the papers was little Diwali diyas made out of cow dung and nicely painted, which is biodegradable. And it's also providing some sort of sustainable contribution to the Goshala to earn some funds to grow more to feed the cattle. It's got to be a sustainable approach that when you said community ownership, I need not own a cow, but I can still contribute to the welfare of the cattle in my community. So that's a message that we all need to think about as people.
Atul, do you want to explain to us the kind of self-sustainable model you created in the wax shelter with the biogas plant and everything? I think a lot of people don't know this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And then we can open up to questions.
Yes, well, unfortunately, it's not self-sustainable yet, but that's simply, again, sorry, lack of staff, lack of support from local bodies. But the silver lining is it can be, with some government help. As I said, with the biogas, you can light up lamps, street lamps, if it's done properly. Now people say, oh, well, that's a lot of work. But remember, electricity, we built dams to get electricity. So, if each town, city had a huge biogas plant, which was maintained, that would work really well. And also touching on Khaled's point, like if goshalas or surrounding areas even grew tree fodder, for example, banana leaves, jackfruit leaves, mango leaves. They love palm leaves as well, erica palm. So if people grew that, and we have people, they come in once a week, bring a huge bunch of leaves, which our cows love. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. You can even make bricks to build houses out of cow dung. And the idea behind this is to be self-sufficient. Yeah.
That's really amazing. That's really quite amazing. Guys, lots of questions, comments. I think Rubina has a point. Given the magnitude of the problem, does it get frustrating to be the only ones who seem to be making an impact? Is there any effort to recruit community aid in the form of volunteers or labor? Swati?
It is not frustrating. It is not frustrating. We feel we can handle that many cattle which are there on the streets. As an NGO, Dhyan Foundation, we are already taking care of 20,000 cattle given by Border Security Force without any government support. Absolutely. So in Goa, there are hardly 15,000. So we don't find it that big a challenge. If people get together, if government has political will, it can just happen very easily. And there are so many animal lovers, cattle lovers in Goa that they are willing to help. I mean, they are willing to support. And good things, who doesn't like? I mean, anything that is good, everybody will support. So it is increasing day by day. More and more people are calling us. They are getting conscious of the problem. Even children call us. People from all walks of life, communities, religion, across the religion. Everybody calls and tells about the animals which are there in trouble. So it will slowly happen. It is certainly only government has to just give a go ahead, a little impetus for us to take off. We can do it. It is not frustrating. It is to see the animal suffering, yes, but it has a solution also. It has involved the community. I mean, it has to be public and private participation. Everything can be done. Goa is such a small place. We can make it an example in our country. This is the only state which is stray cattle free, and these goshalas can become a tourist spot also. It can help the government in tourism also. Once a goshala is set up, the neighboring areas also will start prospering. The tourists are coming. They can set up the hotels, that small ones I'm saying, to cater to the visitors. So it can be made. I'm sure it is going to happen. I feel so.
Okay, I'm going to take one concluding comment from all three of you and we'll end the session. It's been a really great conversation. And I think we've done it's a very vast topic. And in a 1.5 hour session, 1 hour 15 minutes, you can only cover some way. And I'm really so grateful for all three of you. So I'll start with Atul Atul, give us a concluding comment, and then I'll go to Khaled, and then I'll ask come to Swati.
Yeah, I'd just like to say to the public that you can help in lots of ways. I have people coming and saying, oh, well, I can't dress a maggoty wound, or I'm scared of cows. But, equally important is you could go to your local body, or you could write a letter to the paper, just create awareness. Laws have to be changed. You can be part of that, law changing machinery. So you have to be more active and not just, think, oh, well, the animal rescuers are going to do it. You have to get involved in lots of ways.
Thank you so much, Atul. Khaled, as you give us a concluding comment, there's a really interesting comment about garbage from Mahalakshmi. What can be done about the garbage issue? It is a huge job. My thoughts are educating the public on separating food out of the trash, picking up all the trash continuously, getting it to the trash plant or landfill. Is anyone doing this work already in Goa? Has anyone been successful in getting their community cleaned up? I mean, the garbage issue kind of brings our dog and cow issue together, right? It affects both the street dogs of Goa and street cows of Goa. I mean, really, this is something that really, really affects us. And people don't understand that the work of the shelters is made worse because of open dumping of garbage. So what would you say about that as a concluding comment? And also as a doctor?
Yes, so I've not seen dogs consuming plastic. They are far more selective of what they eat, and they tend to be all right. It's just that their population increases quite a bit because those are feeding sites for them. But cows, I think, I don't know how to solve the garbage problem, but it stems from awareness from each one of us, segregating our garbage of home, like a fish can, as Atul said, a fish tin or a cheese tin or any of those tins which we open up are sharp. And if we put it into the bin, and that's then into an open bin where a cow would come in contact with it, could cut its tongue, could get it in its foot, just trying to have a few licks of whatever was remaining. So segregating our garbage that could harm animals is number one. I wish we could ban plastic in favor of the cows that are in our community. Yes, I agree, we cannot at this point take all of them and put them into goshalas, although that would be ideal. We need to remove all the cows and put them into, not necessarily called goshalas, but maybe sanctuaries, community sanctuaries. Every cluster of panchayat could have a community sanctuary for these animals which are otherwise just on the street. They should be either owned and registered with the government. That's what they're doing with the tags and the vaccinations at the moment. Or if they are street animals, they will be cared for in a community goshala or a community sanctuary for these animals, because they don't belong on the streets. They don't belong in the garbage dumps. They also need a respectable life. That's my comment.
Thank you, Khaled. Swati, a last concluding comment from you.
I almost said what I have to say, but one point I want to mention. Khaled spoke about the fodder bank. She spoke about the fodder bank. There is no fodder available for cattle. Now, the bovine farmers which are there, we are planning to tie up with farmers who can grow fodder, and they will do complete buyback from them. So we are in process of talking to them, because 700 cattle, a person does entire cultivation of makkah or say CO4 grass. He will cultivate it for DAN Foundation and we will buy it from him. So talks are going on. Secretary Animal Husbandry, Mr. Gangar, he is very much active in this area. He is Secretary Agriculture as well. So we have been referred to a couple of farmers, but that confidence is not coming from them. Somebody has to tell them that this just go ahead, it's going to work. And Goa can be independent from, because all the fodder that comes from Belgaum. So half the money goes in transportation. So why not have it here itself? And farmers can earn their living. There's a farmer who is to sell every day 20 tons of makkah. So even 2 rupees a kilo. So that comes to about 40,000 rupees. So it is quite a sum. We can grow our own. We can have our own silage. That is you cut that maize leaves into and ferment it. That becomes silage, which is very nutritious for the cattle. So this awareness has to be created. There are opportunities in this field also for those who want to make their livelihood. So it is just like, getting things together. Already we are late. I mean, already the problem has occurred, as I told you. So solution is not all that easy, but it is possible.
Thank you, Swati. Atul, there's one more question for you. It's actually a combination of two questions. In a way, we kind of started with this, so we're ending with this. And because some people also joined late, but the two questions are: A, what kind of laws do we need? Like, what do we need to address this issue? And second, what can we do as citizens who live in Goa to avoid these accidents with cattle? Okay, I know this is a complicated issue because so far we've been saying that cattle shouldn't be on the road. I guess you drive safely. I mean, I don't know what else to say beyond that. But I mean, anyway, what laws need to be there and what can we do to avoid accidents? Atul? Last comment from you.
Me?
Yeah, you Atul, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, as I said, there are short-term solutions like fluorescent collars, or we could, on every busy highway, make a little shed, but that would have to be maintained. Otherwise, human beings will quickly take it over and be sleeping there. But in the long term, as I said, there are laws in place, and somebody called Sirjani is asking, and what are the laws? As I said, there are the Panchayat Raj Act, there's the animal cruelty PCA, which says you cannot abandon an animal that you own. So it's just actually enforcing those laws.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I mean, that's my colleague Sirjan actually. There is a Goa Panchayat Raj Act, which actually makes it a duty of the Panchayat under section 112 subsection A, that if it's an owned cattle that is abandoned, it's a criminal offense and the Panchayat has the power to fine the owner, which is why Anthony has been repeatedly making the point that Animal Husbandry Department should ear tag all the cows with the numbers so the cows can be identified and located back to the owners. Actually, Anthony, that's really happening in Goa in a big way right now. So a lot of cows are getting tagged, not at a scale that we need. Definitely not abandoned cows on the road because, as Swati said earlier, those cows have been on the streets for 3-4 generations now. So there's no traceability of an owner. And second is, so I mean, that's kind of the main kind of an issue. But the other issue is that the panchayats have to create cow shelters. I don't want to use the word impound them, but create cow shelters. And I think a really great suggestion that's come from Swati in the conversation is that we need to kind of expand the horizon of our conversation and move beyond the panchayat unit and say that we need to create clusters of panchayat to come together. So maybe actually we just need to talk in those terms. And I think so more advocacy on those lines. And I think it's great that I'm sorry to put Khaled at a spot here because Khaled is actually now a member of the North District SPCA. She's the animal welfare representative. So I hope that Khaled will take our suggestions forward. So we feel like we've contributed something in a conversation and Khaled will help us take these conversations forward to the Animal Husbandry Secretary. So thank you, Khaled, for that. Sorry for putting on. And guys, we have a small little slide of, it's a little sad, but it's kind of important. So we made a little slide of a few of the cases that WAG handled this year of cows. And we're going to just show that as an end, just to kind of, I mean, we're ending on a somber note, but it is a kind of this is not a fun kind of a conversation. The reality is kind of harsh. So we'll end with that. And I'm so grateful for all three of you for kind of helping us provide these answers to these very difficult questions that we see in front of us all the time. Thank you so much. Reggie,
Thank you.
Normal slides, okay. Or normal slides. Okay, sure. Whatever you're showing, Reggie. Oh, normal slides. Sorry, we are not showing the back slides. I'm very sorry, my mistake. We're just showing our regular slides. They're just the regular slides. Okay, we're not showing any bad pictures. Thank you, guys. Good night. Have a nice time. And this
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Atul.
Thank you.